Patrick and Tammy, it's yours.
Thank you, Lucy. Welcome everybody to what is initially the June 2023 meeting of Manhattan Community Board 1's Land Use, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee. I'm Patrick Cannell, chair of the committee. My co-chair for land use is Laura Starr, who I think might be joining us shortly. We are starting off our agenda with a joint item with our friends from the Environmental Protection Committee. So we have Alice Blank, who's the chair of that committee, with us. We also have CB1's overall chair, Tammy Meltzer, here as well. And Lucy from our office is with us too. So welcome everybody. The first item on our agenda, let's just get right into it, is a further consideration of Mayor Adams' City of Yes initiative, and specifically the first of 3 zoning text amendments, the first of which relates to the city's carbon neutrality commitment, to be carbon neutral by 80% down carbon neutral by 2050. And we looked last month at the pieces of the zoning text amendment, the 17 specific actions and various goals that the Department of City Planning, as the applicant is proposing, the City Planning Commission as the applicant is proposing with the zoning text amendment. And we had asked a number of questions of Stephen Johnson with the Department of City Planning, a senior official who was able to, well, first of all, Stephen, again, compliments on your presentation last month. It honestly, it really is one of the best we've had. It was very helpful in walking us through what is a really complex zoning text amendment. But Stephen was able to get us answers to broad categories of some of the questions. So I thought what we might do, I know Lucy has sent them out to everyone, is to kind of go over answers to those questions and pick the conversation back up. We are on the clock. This was referred out by the City Planning Commission at the end of May. I think June 5th is the official start date of our 60-day review period. So we do need to get a resolution done tonight that we can present to the full board of Community Board 1 this month, so that we meet our time. Again, just a quick reorientation of ULURP and zoning text decisions. We either approve, disapprove, approve with conditions, or disapprove with conditions. So we will try to work our way toward that and see how folks feel. But Stephen, maybe if you could take just the 3 to 5 minutes and walk folks through the broad categories and buckets of questions and the answers that you were able to find.
Sure. So I think the first and foremost question that came up the most was about costs associated with any improvements. And I think we had touched on the 2 main funding mechanisms before, but just to give some more light on that, I put in 2 links into the chat for 2 areas where you can attempt to get some funding. The first one is New York City Accelerator, which is the main New York City way to check out the resources available to you, the different trainings and guidance from people. So what you can do is you can go to that website, look up your building, and see if they have any specific information related to your building or house or whatever, wherever you're living. And if there's anything in there that is already in the existing database, that will come up for your building. So they also have people to give you advice on how to upgrade your building and become more energy efficient with your building with different types of clean energy technologies and how to deal with the local building laws. So this is where all the main experts for the city are located. And again, that's New York City Accelerator. So you can go straight to that website and look that up. The other one is the NYSERDA Act that I think Lucian put in originally into one of the chats. But this is also the NYSERDA website will give you information on the Inflation Reduction Act and all the funding that may be available through that, through those incentives. And apparently that's between 1,000 to 4,000 that could be available to for insulation and sealing of different packages for your building. That one's not through the city though, so I don't have as many details in particular about that one aspect of it. So that's kind of where the cost resources are available to you. And the city's trying to be helpful in providing these things. And the city council, which did the local laws, as you know, are separate from city planning and city agencies. So I think a lot of the questions were related to local laws, which is not something that we're quite as up to speed with, but it's related. So you can still go to those websites I gave you to figure out how to get your more clean energy and more technologies into your building. One thing I did want to highlight after the meeting a month ago, I was asked about planters and bioswales and rain gardens and alternatives to that on the city streets. And I asked Niles Klingel specifically for a response to that question, and he specifically said Community Board One asked him about that at a previous meeting, and he wrote text into the zoning resolution, proposed text, that addresses that issue. So the Department of City Planning is updating the street tree requirements to reflect new design standards. And this is a new allowance for street trees to be provided in above grade planters instead of being waived also. And that also includes rain gardens. So I just wanted to highlight that you could, this is like an example of the community board successfully getting something into zoning text, which perhaps you feel is a miracle, and perhaps we also feel it's a miracle, but it's a success story, and I think we should all be aware of that and applaud it. So congratulations to the community board for doing that.
I'm actually going to say, Stephen, thank you for the willingness of DCP to come and speak to us early and often. It is a great model for city agencies for engagement on how to really make a process better. So thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Democracy in action. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Stephen, is that everything
Yeah,
from your
yeah,
update? Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
We say one more thing. I think the public hearing is tentatively scheduled for mid to late July.
okay.
So that'll be a time when people can come out and make statements about it too. So that's July 26th is the tentative date for that.
Stephen, can I ask what feedback have you gotten so far from public sources, including other community boards,
So
apart from ours?
yeah, I mean, I think I like to think of this as the first of the three and probably maybe the easiest to get through because I think everybody in New York City agrees that this is a huge issue and that we're all trying to do something about it. So the feedback has been very positive about the regulations that we're proposing and the text amendment. We've had some questions around landmarks and how those are going to be reviewed. We've had some questions about, I think some of the community boards have kind of, tried to figure out how people work around the regulations, which is, that's with every regulation and zoning text amendment that we have. There's always a lawyer who's looking to work around things. So I think that's what's
Hey,
kind of
just kidding.
not not all lawyers, but it's their job, right? So I can understand that completely. Um, so I think that's kind of where a lot of the questions have been around. But I think I could say without a doubt that the overall tenor has been very positive on the proposal.
Great. Thanks for that. All right, folks, as we normally do, what I want to do is ask committee members, this would be committee members of either LZE or the Environmental Protection Committee, to please use the raise hand feature, and I'll call on you in the order that I see hands. And then once we've gone through committee members and public members of the two committees, we'll go to other community board members and then members of the public if you have any other questions or comments. I guess now would be a good time to sort of ask questions that you think will help you get to where you need to be for a resolution, which we would like to start feeling out right after any further questions. So with that, I'm going to go down the list. I'm seeing no hands from community board members, which means I'm going to look to the attendees next.
I have a
And
question, Patrick.
great, there we are.
I believe nobody else does, though. Um, so, Stephen, thanks very much for everything. I did have some questions. I saw Community Board 5's resolution, which we shared, I think, with the board members. There was the concern that I also had on, what they call unintended loopholes or consequences that you're referring to, and specifically with mechanical voids. Has that been addressed specifically by the department, that particular concern?
Well, I mean, there's just no regulation for a mechanical void. So I understand where the Community Board 5 was coming from, because there were a couple buildings that were proposing what's called a void in a building to get height on it. But these proposals for the carbon neutrality, there's no height increase for any of the initiatives here. I think it's more related to, I mean, I was trying to understand where they were coming from, and I think one of the issues was maybe it was FDNY requested that in order for them to access rooftop spaces, if there's solar panels on the space, that they had to have more clearance underneath the solar panels, which maybe that pushed things up a few feet higher, but there are still limits to how high a solar panel can be. I think the height is up to 15 feet for a solar
That's right,
panel.
15 feet, yeah.
But that's not floor area either. So there's no penthouse addition. There's no relaxing, wine cellar or bowling alley or swimming pool that's taking up floor area underneath those.
Yeah, but I can see that concern being a fair one, and I would say, Patrick, that in the resolution, I would echo what's being said there. And I guess another question I still don't have clarity on, and they also identified it a little differently than I might, but the idea of, when you build these solar panels on your roof, the fact that you can do 100%, and I know we brought up this the last time, this kind of voids out the possibility of having any green roof and heat retention and water retention. I'm just wondering how did the department deal with that, I don't know, dilemma, but that sort of equivalency between, the two possible choices that any building would make. Um, and I look out on 3 roofs outside my windows here. And I think to myself, wow, I don't want to see 15 feet worth of, solar panels. So do we have a choice? Is there a choice that you're given when you start to look at retrofitting your buildings?
The choice is completely up to the owner of the building. So if you want to have half a green roof or a roof with half a green roof on it and half solar panels, or if you want it all solar panels, it's up to whatever works best for your building and whatever. I don't know if it could be tied to funding. Maybe there's more funding for one than the other, or if your building does more composting, maybe you want to have more composting facilities on your roof. Or
why does the amendment not address the green roof, or does it? I'm sorry, I didn't get that intimate with it. I have to be frank.
So DOB regulates the green roofs, and green roofs are permitted. So I think the question from green roofs last time was related to the garage that collapsed.
Right.
And the load bearing from the older buildings that might not be able to do it. So I think I was addressing that question more in the vein of, that's hopefully a rare incident of building like that collapsing, but DOB does all the inspections that are required for those buildings. And I don't think green roofs are being, are you saying that green roofs are not allowed?
No. I mean, I appreciate the weight factor and all of that. I just was curious why the amendment doesn't seem to mention it as, a useful potential use of roof space. And when you talk about 100% of roof coverage of solar panels, I think it's a very different look to the city. And, I assume in terms of the absorptive qualities of a green roof versus solar panels, obviously 0 to 100 and stuff like that. So I just was curious it wasn't addressed, and I didn't quite understand why not. I see Colin's hand is up. Maybe he has the answer, but
I think it's up to the building owner
Mhm.
to put on the roof what works best for them, whether it's a green roof, solar panels, or a greenhouse or whatever they see fit.
okay. Well, those would be two concerns or things I would want to see addressed, as in the resolution, or at least highlighted. If this is going to get more fleshed out as an amendment, I don't know even if it is, but that's just something, Patrick, to take note of. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Allison. I'll work with you on that language. Just, I mean, we all agree, which I would imagine we would. Colin and then Joel.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. If there's one issue that I'm well suited for, it's this one. So I really regret not being involved into this point. So I apologize. But so I'm catching up. But Stephen or anyone, is AMI or AMR demand response meters or smart meters involved in anything or any of these proposals?
I can't answer that question. That's a detailed question. I could take that back to the team. Does anybody from city planning who's in the meeting right now, do they have an answer for that? I know Jose and Ezra know quite a bit about the regulations. But if not, I could take it back to the group team and get you an answer on that.
And I'm happy to elaborate offline too, but it's a way for buildings to understand their use, their demand, and how utilities can respond in real time to make sure that they're not wasting a lot of energy. It's a huge step, perhaps more so than solar panels on a roof, to making sure that buildings aren't burning energy. But
I think
I just
if you go to New York City Accelerator and get a person to talk to there, they can give you details because they have to be using something to rate buildings and to see how they can improve performance.
Yep. Okay. Again, I wish I read more and studied more. I'm not up to speed. I would normally have a lot to say, but I'm just going to listen for now. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Colin. And I think it's important to remember as we frame the notion of this zoning text amendment, this is really the city providing building owners with additional tools and removing some zoning impediments to be able to use those tools. They're not saying you got to use one thing over another. It's really just trying to open up possibilities. I know that doesn't directly address your question, Colin, and I wouldn't even pretend that I even understood it in the first place. But Joel,
I do think there should be a discussion, maybe through this committee or through Alice's committee,
sure.
on what kind of buildings we allow being built downtown moving forward. Because look, 2050 is great, 80% by 2050 is great. It's too late, right? So drastic action needs to be taken. I'm personally concerned about how New York's going to satisfy its water supply in 20 years. I know there's reservoirs up north, but those are going to be threatened too. So there's a lot that need to be done, and I appreciate the effort by the city here, but drastic action does need to be taken. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Colin. Joel, you
Yeah.
put your hand down, but are you still wanting to ask?
Yeah, I still have a question.
Great.
I'm all in favor of closing natural gas power plants, but I was wondering what the Department of City Planning has to say in terms of making sure that we can avoid brownouts, because especially with peaker plants, there's a risk, at least in my understanding, that if we get rid of these plants and we don't have this option anymore, that when you get to the worst case scenario, when there's no wind and there's no sun, how are we going to be able to avoid brownouts or blackouts, especially for places that need electricity like hospitals?
Sure. Well, what city planning is doing is this zoning text amendment, and I can tell you that Con Ed is being constantly inundated with trying to update their grid and then improve performance of their grid and to take into account these regulations. Because frankly, one discussion we always have is, so if everybody has a Tesla and they plug in at 7 p.m. at night, does the city go dark, right? So it's like you have to do something ahead of time to make sure that you can provide this electrical power for everyone. And that's what that's what city planning's part is right here, is we're trying to do these rooftop solar panels, et cetera, to try to get people more able to address the issue of energy consumption. So, I mean, that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do here.
Putting on my clairvoyant hat for a moment, I think Colin, Joel, if you don't mind, might be able to answer that question. Am
Okay,
I
great.
right, Colin?
Yes, as you know, I'm dying to answer that question. Yes, peaker plants don't necessarily mean they have to be coal or they have to be gas powered. They can also be battery powered. Utility scale batteries can be put, like I suggested, on Governor's Island at a utility scale, like several batteries stacked on top of each other.
Great.
And I'm not sure how many it would take. I'm not sure how many kilowatt hours you would need. But you can definitely back up the city just with 5, 10, 15 batteries running Governor's Island. It's super easy, super doable. And I noticed that Community Board 5 actually tried to address that in their resolution too, and I thought it was very smart.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would say I just want to make sure that we do have that backup power. I know scaling batteries has been, you know, a challenge, but if we could do that, that would be great. But we need to make sure that our energy system is resilient in addition to being renewable, so that we can avoid these brownouts and blackouts.
Thanks, Joel. Great point. Tammy?
So I wanted to ask about bus shelters. Because currently, one of the things that enhances a neighborhood is if the bus shelter is, I don't know, well lit, but it would be great if there's some solar dialogue looking at it. And I'm aware that the city has just purchased plain old fashioned, non-green, non-sustainable ones. So how can this text amendment take a look at what's supposed to be coming and try and get us off a little bit more onto something independent like solar?
So what this text amendment will do for property that's controlled by the Department of Transportation is absolutely nothing. So I think what you could do is in your letter, in your resolution, you could state something along the lines, we want this, and we realize it's for Department of Transportation or whatever, but that's something that will be seen, and then you take it up with the DOT personnel and ask them why they're not doing that. Take it up with your council member who can call directly to DOT and ask them why and if and when they're doing that. And then I think I've spoken with you a little bit about this before, Tammy, is that if it's something that's a priority for the community board, then you get it in your community district needs statement. And that way, every city agency then reads it and sees what your priorities are and what you would like to see in your communities.
Yeah, we have a rather long one. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, I'm not seeing other hands up among committee members. I do have a question too in a second, but I want to see if there are any attendees. No. Stephen, when we talked last time, I think I expressed a concern. You mentioned some commitments from Con Ed, and I expressed a concern about what the practical effect of this could be in effectively handing over an entire monopoly for a market of energy service to one particular provider, and whether there's been any regulatory back channel discussion or otherwise to sort of quell that concern or really deal with what might be a byproduct of that. And I don't know if you have any further information on that, but I will tell you that is something that concerns me greatly, that if we, with this move, which I'm not disputing the value of it, that we need to make sure we have a check on Con Ed, so they're not, raising rates and delivery fees, and people have no other option because the law doesn't allow it. And I just want to make sure we're not biting off our nose to spite our face.
Sure, I highly recommend that you put that comment in your resolution.
Okay.
But to add to that, I think what is this text amendment is doing is it's giving each building owner some independence on putting in some energy sources for themselves. So I realize that if you have extra energy, you're not really going to be able to sell that to somebody, but you do get credits for that back through Con Ed, and that will then go into your own in your next bill, I think. So I think if you I asked about this also. I think if you were able, if you had like a large scale, they talked about this for schools that have a campus, that you could potentially move it around, the energy production around the campus. But I think for regular households like where we all live, that's not something that can be done. But I think taking energy into your own hands as much as possible, and making your own building as independent as possible helps with taking some of that out of Con Ed's hands.
But you're selling it back to them. I mean, theoretically, that all sounds great, but it's still a fox and a hen house
Yep.
situation. And I'm not maligning Con Ed by any means. It's just the opportunity for abuse is present. So
Yeah.
well, I'll urge that we note that in our resolution in any event. Okay. Any other hands? Seeing none. Now I would like to, and thank you, Stephen, and city planning team for coming back and helping us work through this. I'd like to get a sense from members of both committees, where we are. Again, framing a land use decision is approve, disapprove, approve with conditions, and disapprove with conditions, which I know the last two sound very similar, but they're a little different. It's like telling your teenager that they have permission as long as they do X, Y, and Z, versus telling them, no, you can't do it unless you have done this, and done that first. Maybe it's a semantic difference, but it's an important one nonetheless. But how are we feeling about this? And just feel free to unmute. No need to raise a hand. Colin, I see you raise your hand, so you get to go first. But if folks just want to chime in, we'll go around the room and get a sense of where we are.
Yeah, again, I mentioned before that I'm playing from behind here, and I apologize for that. But I wonder if CB1 doesn't do its own version of what we think the future for downtown looks like, and what paths we should take to get there on our own, in addition to this, meaning we don't go too far into kind of picking this one apart. Does that make sense? Like, approve this with whatever conditions we come up with, fine. But I do think there needs to be more, especially since we're downtown, when we're the most vulnerable part of the city, given climate change, that we kind of do our own thing in addition to this. Just want to hear what people thought about that.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I understand what you're saying. Well, I'll chime in and say that I'm kind of in that same camp, Colin, that, we certainly, I think this is something we should support, particularly given the vulnerabilities downtown. It would be sort of silly for us not to, but there are legitimate concerns that Alice has cited. I mentioned the Con Ed thing too, but so there may be, I don't know if those are necessarily conditions, but perhaps they are. So it's at least an approved with conditions, I would think. I'm seeing Jason thumbs up.
I agree. And thank you for bringing up the Con Ed sort of monopoly. Really is a very important issue. Relying on one source for energy, and it's human nature to take advantage when they can. So I'm really grateful you brought that up. Thank you, Patrick.
Sure, you're welcome. Okay. Not hearing a groundswell of opposition or other views. It sounds like we are a yes with several conditions. I think Alice noted a couple and I noted one, echoing CB5's concerns regarding the mechanical voids or similar situations created by installation of solar panels, that the legislation should address green roofs where allowing for 100% solar panel coverage. We'll work on the language, of course, Alice. And then my concern about the Con Ed monopoly. Colin?
Yeah, I was just going to ask that you do exactly what you're doing right now. That's all.
Okay. So with
Add my comment about the having no impact on other agency opportunities such as DOT and bus shelters and things like that for expansion of green infrastructure.
agency opportunities. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, with the green roofs, I guess, as Stephen was saying, it's a DOB related matter evidently, so it seems to be, again, something where there should be involvement with the DOB perspective on it or some way to engage.
Okay.
I also wanted to ask a question, Patrick.
Please.
Sorry, it just occurred to me. So in privately owned enterprises, co-ops, condos, people can vote whether they would like to have an entire roof in solar panels, which I'm definitely against. I think if possible, green roofs are lovely. But what I think I would like to avoid is there are a lot of rental buildings downtown. And if a building owner thinks that it'll be advantageous for them to have nothing but solar panels, they will diminish a lot of, public, private space for the inhabitants of that building. And so there won't be any rooftops, any areas to, escape and repose. And if we give that entirely to the building owner, I'm a little concerned that there won't be any rooftops being used at all or any green spaces. Is that something that I'm like imagining wrong, or do you see what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. I wonder if Stephen and the city planning team might be able to address that with a little bit more detail.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
So if the question is you're worried that everyone's going to put up solar panels, is that the question?
Well, I'm saying that, let's say, a scenario, if the building owners are the final decision makers as to how the roofs are utilized, and there is a great financial benefit to having nothing but solar panels, they will go for it. And a lot of buildings downtown are rental, and they rely, because there's very little public street space, they rely on their rooftops as a place to escape. So if we give the building owner all the right to decide, then they will go for what is financially best for them, and then tenants will lose any of the green spaces or, just rooftop places where you can escape to. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it would be a nice problem to have. I don't see solar panels going up everywhere just yet. And I think when I look on top of buildings, usually it's just black with tar and
Yeah.
roofing. So I think, it would be great if there were more options available and, some percentage of them are roof greenhouses and some are solar and some are green roofs. But I think, I think it's really something that we can leave up to whoever controls the building, because I think the bigger picture is it's a positive net effect on the energy consumption.
And I'm no real estate expert, but I would suspect that building owners find that there's value in having rooftop amenities and that sort of thing available, just from a straight marketability perspective. So they're not as likely, I wouldn't think, to just plop solar panels up there if they get higher rents by selling a rooftop. But
Okay. Just
Ushma,
remember, right, 100 John, I'm just worrying, like, there's a perfect example.
yeah.
Taking away any sort of, public-private place. Anyway, thank you so much for addressing this. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. Ushma, you have your hand up for the first time, and then I want to go to Colin and then Alice.
Thank you very much. I was reading through the PowerPoint with all of the initiatives and came across the one for the onshore wind turbines. And so wanted to just raise that as an issue. Again, living downtown, I'm thinking, where could that be? That might be in Battery Park City at the bottom, and we're very windy. I'm not trying to be NIMBY, but I'm not really sure about onshore wind turbines in a very crowded area in New York City. So just raising it as someone who might be more of an expert on that than myself, to think about would that work?
Ushma,
And I'm
that
only looking
question
at it from
exactly.
my thing. only
exact-
from my area, you know,
That
my
question
neighborhood.
exactly came up, and Stephen was able to address that in some buckets of responses. And Stephen, I can just characterize it. Basically, it's no one would want that downtown. It wouldn't make any sense. It makes more sense out in farther areas of Queens and as you get toward Long Island.
But would we put in language to maybe characterize where that would work and like not in very urban dense areas or something?
That's very fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I want to jump in there. I want to be very careful that we don't look NIMBY-ish. And look, the scientific, for those who don't know, I'll do it again. This is my business. I work in this world, but there is not a wind turbine that we could put up anywhere downtown that would power a single building, never mind any significant part of the city. You're talking 2 to 5 to 7 megawatt machines that could have any hope of powering anything. But at the same time, we should go at great lengths to not look like we're anti-renewable, anti-green. So, Ushma, I hope you can be satisfied with the fact that it just doesn't make scientific sense to put up a wind turbine. But my question for Stephen was, again, I used to work for a battery storage firm for apartments for in-homes. And I know FDNY for a very long time and probably still were vehemently opposed to any kind of lithium battery in buildings. Lithium batteries, on the other hand, for large buildings would make a tremendous difference, not just for blackouts, but for storing power. Have you gotten around that with FDNY?
So FDNY has been consulted on every aspect of this proposal because
Yep.
we know that there's issues around that and the storage of these storage facilities for energy. So I think just to, in a nutshell, you know, FDNY is reviewing this and reviewed this, and they're on board with what the proposal is.
So, and again, I'm coming from behind. I'm so sorry. I admit it. I didn't read the whole thing. Sorry. Does that include in-building storage systems as well?
Yes, yes, it does.
Really? Okay, cool.
I don't have the details. I feel like you're probably an expert on this, but I don't have the details of the type of storage or how they're doing it. But the part of the proposal is to allow this in buildings in certain configurations, and so.
Yep.
Uh,
And
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just going to say, Ushma and Colin, to the point you guys were talking about with wind turbines or turbines. I've heard it all different ways.
Turbines.
I think as a compromise, perhaps both of you would accept that we will talk about it in the whereas sections and refer to Stephen's answer, which is effectively that it's just not a very practical thing to occur here. It doesn't necessarily need to be something we resolve about. Does that sound fair?
Well,
I would only be
hey,
able. Sorry.
hey, Patrick, there's also things that are, signaling more than powering, Colin's right. You're not going to power the whole building, but there are signaling that you can do with these micro turbines that, even if they just light up the lights on your deck, when they blow, I would like to, I mean, part of this to me is signaling for the next generation that we care and we're doing something, not that we're going to fix everything all at once. And there's going to be a lot of innovation, and there are a lot of young people that are engineers that are coming up with new technologies. And I would like to say, even if it doesn't power the whole building, even if it doesn't fix the big problem, like every little bit counts. So I would like to say in here that part of it is that the spirit of we want flexibility for buildings and individuals to, do new things on their roof as we're racing towards this new future that we're way behind on. And even if it's not going to be the perfect, I would like to say, not just not in my backyard, but like at least we're doing something and it will inspire the next person to make the better design.
Well, I think, and yes, we would never word it in such a way where we would exclude any future innovations, anything like that. I think just addressing the question of big turbines, it was asked earlier, and there was an answer given. I think we could just note that as a factual matter in the resolution. And I don't want us to get necessarily bogged down in a wind turbine debate.
Well, and that's right, because everybody's definition of big is different. So, it's a difficult thing.
Right.
Thank you.
Patrick,
Sure.
Sorry. I think I have a solution. At least that would make me happy, because I'm totally with Wendy. We can't have any language in there that looks like we're, NIMBYing anything or denying anything. I completely agree. Perhaps though the fix here for everybody is, while there currently is no technology at scale that can help wind turbine power a building downtown, whatever, we would encourage the state and the city to, you know, find solutions to build transmission for utility scale turbines up or something like that, right? Just showing the reality of the situation that the only way we can get power from wind turbines is up north or offshore. I think that's a fix for everybody. It's
Okay.
in the weeds. I apologize, but
No, that's fine. And thank you for volunteering to help with the wordsmithing.
Yeah.
Ushma, does that work? Okay. I know you have your hand up. I just want to make sure. And Alice,
Yeah,
I
I
see
just
your
have
hands up. I
one
just want
more.
to solve this issue first.
Yes, thank you. And
Okay.
I'm not trying to be NIMBY. I was just trying to see how it worked. I had one more comment whenever
Sure.
it's my turn again.
Well, why don't you go ahead and then we'll come back to Alice.
The other comment I had was on all of the focus on the electric bikes and charging, which would make it much easier for more people to be on bikes. So this is an ancillary issue, which is there's a significant amount of bikes and people who ride bikes who don't know how to ride bikes. So I'm also just thinking, as part of this, you're getting people to use bikes, but there needs to be education, because I know it's a separate issue, but at the same time, bikes and accidents downtown are crazy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's a bit out of scope for the application that we're talking about, but I would encourage you to bring that up with the Quality of Life Committee that regularly
have.
handles issues like that. Yeah. Alice?
You know, I'm just still not clear on another aspect of it, because my understanding was that DCP was working with DOB on the green roofs. I mean, those are, you know, structures, and if I'm not mistaken, wasn't this about like growing plants on your roof or edible things and such? It's very unclear what the change now is in terms of this text amendment. Is it somehow, I think it will no longer require chair certification at city planning, but are there other changes that we should be aware of? I mean, these are pretty big structures, and you really wonder where this is another one that may have unintended consequences. Just curious what, you know, where private owners get to build basically structures on top of their roofs. Is there anything that's changed in terms of DOB regulations that you're aware of, or is it only that it no longer goes through chair certification? It's just administrative change?
Yeah, it's just becomes an as of right feature, so there's no bureaucratic action that needs approval, but that doesn't mean DOB doesn't review it at their stage, because when you make changes to your building, DOB has to be involved with that. And the green roofs I think the only change is it allows for 100% coverage for a green roof.
100% coverage. So the
Of your
whole
roof.
roof could have a glazed in greenhouse. Is that, I guess I just didn't get clarity on that. That gives me pause again for the same reasons as before, but it could just be my lack of clarity. But I think that, well, I don't know how we would put this in a resolution, but I think that's along the lines of, you know, what exactly does that mean for the future of, you know, the high ends of New York? I'm not sure I would necessarily applaud that idea, but I think it's along the lines of trying to evaluate all three or other choices that any building would have in terms of what they'll do to, you know, assist in, you know, getting closer to carbon neutral, you know, such. But I don't, yeah, I guess I'm not sure exactly how I would word this. Uh, uh, Patrick, maybe you can be helpful, but I think it's something of concern to look carefully at how these roofs will be used, and, you know, the balance therein, and make sure that it's very clear what this all means to folks. It certainly didn't seem like it was crystal clear in the text amendment as it stands now, at least for me. But anyway, there just seems to be a lot of potential unintended consequences. I guess that's what I want to say, with, you know, the potential of a full roof of a greenhouse.
So my colleague Jose Trios from City Planning put a comment in that green roofs would keep being only allowed in commercial districts. I know a lot of this area down here is a commercial district, and there's residential equivalents, but I think there is a limiting factor in that sense in only commercial districts and not our districts.
Thanks very much. I stand by what I said earlier in terms of the resolution, though, Patrick. I think that is an added piece I would recommend putting in. Just
Sure, and recognizing that your time now is limited. Alice, is there anything else that you wanted to go through?
no, and thanks for the reminder.
Okay, no problem. Richard Corman and then Gerald, and I do want to move the conversation along, folks, because we are coming up on our first hour and we still have one more item on the agenda.
Yeah, I wanted to, yeah, thanks for this, Patrick. I wanted to talk about landmark areas. I know we put the question in last time, and the answer was that the changes would still go before the LPC. But LPC, many of these changes actually relate to things that happen on the roof, as we've been talking about on roofs. And LPC would reject any change that would alter what a building looks like from the street level. How are landmark areas and landmark buildings going to be able to deal with this under those circumstances?
It would be a very similar process as today. So the city feels strongly that if you're a landmark building, you should still be able to be more resilient and have better, more energy efficiency in your building. So in order to do that, we want to be able to allow the roofs of these types of buildings, these special buildings, to have these features, whether it's solar panels or green roofs. So as you know, any building, historic building, landmark building goes to LPC for any changes. And just as you know that if somebody in a landmark building is proposing something that goes to the front of the building, like an extra penthouse or something, the LPC always says, well, what are the materials made out of? You need to set it back a certain number of feet so it's not visible. So there's a whole range of things that they typically do. And that would be the same things that they would be reviewing for these items related to carbon neutral. And then you also have you yourself, the community board gets a review of those processes too.
So I guess my concern is that would restrict the amount of the things that those buildings will be able to do in order to comply and add, resiliency to their buildings.
I see Stephen nodding a little bit. Seems you might agree. Gerald?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
you're getting
sorry.
two sides of the argument here. So, I mean, some people are saying you can't have 100% coverage. Some people are saying it's unfortunate that landmarks can't have 100% coverage. So there's sort of an area we have to agree on. And I think LPC having review of that is a good way of ascertaining where that line might be, and then giving the community board and the ability to comment on that too.
Right. Gerald?
Thanks, Patrick. Two short questions here. So I may be grossly misunderstanding, but I thought I heard earlier mention of greenhouses could be on an entire roof. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I'm really failing to understand this logic then. I thought the intent of green roofs was to reduce heat island effect and increase energy efficiency. How is a greenhouse doing any of that? It seems like it needs to be an open air space to actually be effective. What am I missing?
Well, it depends on how you design your roof and what you want on the roof. So it's just giving you the options to do different things. I think people tend not to put greenhouses on their roof, but if you wanted to grow your own vegetables, if you wanted to grow your own plants, that's something you can do. And it's just, I don't know if you're going to be saving all that much energy efficiency. So I think a lot of what we're focusing on here is energy efficiency and being carbon neutral. So I mean that's what we like to see in this for the buildings. But if you should be able to have an option if you want to have a green roof also.
So in terms of energy efficiency, I'm thinking about, for example, and this is a public school example, but PS41 did half of their roof, I don't know how many years ago it's been, and they've been monitoring it, and they significantly reduced their energy consumption due to the insulation that the green roof provided, as well as the reflection of, or rather the not allowing the roof to heat up. So anyway, my second question is, this idea of whether it's going to be solar or green roof or a blue roof, or whatever other options may be out there, is there a mechanism in place, or is there a mechanism that could be in place where it would be more scientifically regulated, in the sense of, building X uses, I don't know, I'm not big on the energy side of it in terms of kilowatts and everything, but uses so much consumption a year, and we want to see them offset that by 50% using solar panels, and that is what would dictate the amount of solar panel coverage on the roof. I mean, it just seems right now that it's very much left open to the wind.
So if you were going to go through the process of putting solar panels on your roof, for example, I would expect a person to ask, what am I getting out of this, and what makes it worth it, and what am I saving monetarily or monthly or annually? And I think the New York City Accelerator website, you can talk to experts on that. I think you actually have an expert in your own community board who could probably speak to this too. But the idea is you could then see how the pros and cons of doing 100% solar, 50% solar versus 50% green roof, etc. So it gives you the options to figure out what's best for you. We're not dictating what you can do.
And I will say the New York Accelerator program, they're very responsive. I've already reached out to them after our last meeting on behalf of my building, and they're willing, ready, and able to come help us figure out our issues.
So Patrick, one last item on
okay.
that is are green roofs also somehow quantified in this as well? In other words, we all just lived through COVID, and there is a psychological benefit to having green spaces, these amenities, as much as there is a benefit to having the energy, the energy usage.
I'll let Stephen.
And that's my last question. Thanks.
Thanks. I'll let Stephen explain whether that concept is defined in the proposed legislation, or proposed text amendment. But I think that's a point Vicky was getting to earlier.
Yeah, I don't think that part is defined, if I'm understanding your question correctly. So it's not defined as to how much of a green roof you should or shouldn't have, or whether you prefer to have space up there to, sunbathe, or if you'd rather have solar panels.
Okay, thanks. Tammy, you get to have the last word, please.
I'd like to call the question.
Great last word.
Second.
Great. First of all, committee members of Land Use, Zoning, and Economic Development and Environmental Protection, you'll need to have your cameras on to vote, please.
So let Alice go first. I promised her that she wouldn't have to be here.
I'm not going to do a roll call, guys. I'm just going to I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Go ahead.
I'm not doing a roll call. We're going to do it as quick as possible. Any opposed? Cameras on, please. Richard, Jason, Joel, you cannot vote. Jason, can you hear us?
Wait, I'm sorry.
There
You
we
said
go.
I cannot
Okay,
vote?
we got you. We're good. Any opposed? Any abstain? Any recusals? Motion carries. Carry on.
Lucy, just to clarify, Joel Grayson was asking, is he unable to vote?
No, Joel can vote.
Joe Capel, I apologize. I should have been more clear. Joe Capel, he's on his phone. I apologize. Sorry, Joe.
Good.
Thanks a
Motion
lot. I
carries.
have to go. Patrick, I just
Thank
want
you,
to
Alice.
thank you. And also just to make sure that Gerald's point about the greenhouse is part of the concern, this whole idea, which was really intelligent about the bite of heat gain, which is similar to the other point on the green roof. Okay, thanks very much.
And
Thanks.
for everybody who, this is not a runaway. If you are a member of LZE, you must remain on the call for the next item. It's a voting item. If you are a member of the Environmental Protection Committee, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming to a joint meeting. Alice would have me be remiss if I did not mention for EPC that there are two resiliency in the parks meetings coming up in the month of June. So please note that the Hudson River Park Trust Advisory Council tomorrow night, and then June 26th is the BPCA resiliency meeting for the Northwest. And with that, thank you very much for the EPC for joining us for a joint meeting. You're welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
And thank you, Madam Chair, for asking folks to stay and keeping them on the line. I appreciate that. We do have one final item, which is a Section 195 acquisition of office space, a move of the city's independent budget office from 110 William Street to, where are they going, 80 Maiden? 80 Pine. I believe, is it Carrie or Kelly? I'm so sorry. Who's going to be our presenter?
Hi there. My name is Carrie Lowe. I'm with DCAS Real Estate.
Hi, Carrie.
I'll be co-presenting with Jacqueline Sherman from the Independent Budget Office.
Thank you so much. It's all yours. Take it away.
Great. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
This is a Section 195 application for the relocation of the Independent Budget Office. As some of you might know, DCAS is the agency that helps all of the other city agencies and entities with their real estate needs. So we are here representing and co-applying with the Independent Budget Office through the Section 195 process, which is a bit of a carve out from the Euler process, but we still want to make sure that the community board is aware of the application. We plan to file on the 15th this week. And with that, Jackie, take it away. Hopefully you got screen sharing privileges.
Thank you, Carrie. I believe that I did. Good evening. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Hopefully you will see our PowerPoint.
You should be fine. And it's working.
Okay. Are you seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Great. And thank you so much for having us this evening. My name is Jackie Sherman. I am the General Counsel at IBO. I believe I'm joined by my colleague, Marla Simpson. I'm not sure whether she is on the panel, but she is here as well. And we are very pleased to share with you some information about IBO and information about our proposed move, and obviously also to answer any questions or attempt to answer any questions you may have. So I'm going to just give you for a moment or two, in case you aren't familiar with the IBO, a little bit of an overview of our agency. We are a fully independent city agency that was created through the 1989 charter revision. And we play a crucial role in providing city officials and members of the public with nonpartisan information regarding the city budget, policies, and the economy. As envisioned by the New York City Charter, we serve as an independent and nonpartisan source of budget information and analysis to inform public discourse. We specifically, we are required to publish a series of reports every year regarding the city's economy and preliminary and executive budgets. We also provide resources in response to requests from elected officials, interested citizens, and organizations like community boards that can pose questions to us and request that we do research and provide answers. From time to time, we do visits to speak about the budget and budget process in general. And our goal is to help folks understand and participate fully in the city's budget process and to support transparency in that process. A couple of amendments or expansions in the IBO's mandate since the charter amendments that came out of the 1989 revision process. In 2009, the state legislature expanded our role to have us provide information regarding the city's education system. And then in 2017, the City Council passed legislation requiring IBO to produce reports regarding economic development tax abatement programs. So moving on to our space, we are, as Carrie mentioned, we are currently in space at 110 William Street. That we moved into shortly after we were initially funded in 1996. So the space is at this point somewhat dated, and we have outgrown the space. We require office space that can accommodate additional staff members and also can accommodate interns and research fellows. As we undertook the search for new office space, we searched for space that would provide ample natural light, improve ventilation, and will facilitate necessary technological upgrades. Our view is that we need these in order to help the agency continue to attract and retain high quality staff who are necessary to fulfill our charter mandate. The search for office space was limited to downtown area in close proximity to City Hall and other government agencies with which we frequently have interactions. We needed fully accessible space and space that provides ample space both for our staff as well as we have an independent budget office advisory committee that meets on a quarterly basis and is comprised of 10 individuals. And those are public meetings that are held on a quarterly basis. So the proposed location is at 80 Pine Street. And 80 Pine Street is a 38-story office building, which is very easily accessible to City Hall and the surrounding area. It is ADA accessible and has an attended lobby. It is very accessible to multiple forms of public transportation, including many train lines, bus lines, express bus lines, the Staten Island and New York City ferries, as well as bike lanes. And the space that we are working to lease at 80 Pine Street is approximately 13,800 square feet. And the office will, for the most part, be an open layout with workstations, staff offices, a pantry, a copy station, a waiting area, and a large conference room that is sufficient both to accommodate IBO's entire staff as well as to enable us to hold our public meetings comfortably within our office space. The conference room will be equipped with AV capabilities to enable the agency to host hybrid meetings. and there's a projected occupancy date of April 2024. I should mention that you see a couple of photos of the current configuration of the space. And in thinking about the layout for IBO's future office, we have done whatever we can to maintain what's currently in the office and to minimize the amount of renovation that will have to occur in order to outfit the office for our purposes. So with that, I will just share a preliminary floor plan, and we have attempted to maximize the light that will be provided to all staff. And there, as you can see, the office floor plan will be mostly an open floor plan. I see there's a question, and I'm happy to stop and respond to questions. Oh, no question? Okay, just a hand. Okay, hurry up. I'm done, actually. That's it. So
she's suggesting that we finish. Yeah, so we finish the presentation and then we go around for questions.
Absolutely.
And our dutiful members put their hands up first, as Chair Meltzer has done. Tammy, if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask a couple questions first. So you're leaving 110 William. Are you leaving space that is going, and this is a question for DCAS more or less, is this space that you're leaving part of the space that's going to be occupied by ACS when they move into 110 William?
We can get back to you on that question. I don't know that off the top of my head. My colleague Liam Sullivan is here. I'm not sure whether he was able to be promoted to a panelist.
Yeah, I'm here. I think I did get the notification that I am a panelist. I was looking through my notes right now. I don't exactly know what floor they were on at 110 William Street, but I know that we are taking a lot of space there, so I can double check and get back to you guys.
Jacqueline, do you know what floor?
We're on the 14th floor.
I think that's within the catchment that ACS is going to take over. And the reason I ask that, Jacqueline, it's not as much your concern as it is a concern that we have with DCAS over the positioning of 110 William Street, who has been, frankly, and just a terrible neighbor to the buildings that surround them in terms of their construction and demolition work, and just not, frankly, giving a hoot about any of the neighbors that are around them in terms of the hours and manner in which they conduct a lot of those activities. And so we've tried to leverage the relationship that DCAS should have with taking such a huge swath of that building after EDC left, and now after IBO is going to be leaving, and ACS is going to be moving in, to really, sort of put the landlord in line and say, hey, listen, you got to be a good neighbor to the community, because we would demand that. That hasn't happened. It's not DCAS's fault necessarily, but certainly the landlord has not come to the table with the community to try to work out those issues. So again, for DCAS, I flagged that as a major issue with any of these 195 applications where 110 William is involved. So with that, I'll turn to Tammy, but apologies to the IBO. Sounds like an otherwise good move.
Well, I think that most who know me will know the next set of questions. Do you have any placards or on-street parking associated with anything that you do at 110 William that will be moving to the new location, or not moving and remaining at the old location?
We do not have on-street parking.
Yeah, there's no parking as a part of the current office space or the proposed office space.
Awesome. And there are no placards in association with it either, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's easy. Anybody else? Okay. Doesn't seem like this is a terribly complicated one. By the lack of hands, would assume we are in favor of this. If I may note that it's not even a condition, it's just a concern that we should put in the whereas, is that about 110 William, which we've addressed in the ACS resolution a couple of months ago with their 195 application. it seems to me it would bear repeating because we do want city agencies to please take notice of that. Richard, your hand is up. Caught me just in time.
Just one question. So to what degree has the remote work option been taken into account in terms of the size of the space that's being leased?
Yeah, so we do currently operate on a hybrid schedule. So we have staff who our staff are in the office typically at least 3 days a week, and the plans for the new office, in fact, envision quite a bit more sharing of office space than we've had in the past. So we certainly have taken into account the possibility, in fact, for us, the likelihood or probability of continued remote work. Not our staff are actively in our office at least 3 days a week. So we believe we've struck the right balance in terms of having many more shared office spaces and developing space for interns and research fellows to work alongside our staff.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Richard. Okay, with that, any other questions? Again, it sounds like an affirmative resolution unless anybody pipes up and disagrees. So with that, let's call the question. We'll do this vote by acclamation. We'll assume you're a yes unless you tell me that you are a no. Are there any no's? Any recusals? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Jacqueline, I'd say welcome to the neighborhood, but you guys are already here. So rather than going to Jubilee, you guys will have lunch plans somewhere in the Seaport, I would assume. You guys got a lot of good options to take advantage of on that particular side of the financial district. So enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Great. I'll just note one more piece of business before we ring off is that we plan to file this application with DCP on the 15th this week, and the board will receive the formal notification that day or the following day.
Oh, so you're here early. Okay.
We are. Yeah. These 195
Awesome.
applications are it's a 30-day turnaround once you file. So there's always a lot of balancing, with the notifications and things.
Actually, that's perfect.
Thank you for that. And we sincerely appreciate that because this will go to our full board at the end of June, which will then fit nicely. And assuming it passes there, then you'll have your positive resolution in hand within that 30-day period. So thanks for letting us know that. Cool.
Sure. Yeah. I think the hearing date is the 28th. So I think we'll double check this. I think all we need is your resolution before they vote.
Yeah.
So I think there's plenty of time here.
Yeah.
We'll vote on the 27th of June.
Great.
Okay. All right. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
There being no other business before the committee, thanks everybody. We are adjourned, and we'll see you all later in the month or full board. Just a reminder for CB1 members that, Tammy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's June 19th currently is the go live date based on the executive order.
So far, we've heard nothing else. That go live is starting on the 20th. We will see. For us, that means go hybrid, but that means quorum is required in person, much like full board. If that changes, unfortunately, we will either know about 5 o'clock on Friday the 16th, is my estimation, or my hope is not on Juneteenth because the office is closed.
Yep. Keep in mind that's a holiday. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Have a lovely
Thank you.
night.
Good night. Bye.
Good night, everyone.